chambers to the left of the stage. The stairs will take you out the back of the building. The back of the council chambers to your right. The stairs will take you out the front of the building. Just past that on the right is the men's facility. Up the stairs to the left is the ladies' facility. Please do not use the elevator in time of emergency.
Thank you, sir. Presentations. We have one presentation tonight by Tom Manzarossi.
Thank you so much, Council President, Council members. It is my honor this evening. I had nominated Stanley Tree for tonight for our Samaritan Award, and I just want to read what my recognition was for, besides many other things. It was my honor to nominate Stanley Zuba, Julian Emmerich, and the entire team at Stanley Tree to be the Smithfield Samaritans for the month of June 2023. Since opening in Smithfield, they have been a true community partner with the town and the entire community as a whole. Over the years, Stanley Tree has provided countless volunteer hours helping to clear the property for the Smithfield Dog Park, as well as a potential site for the Smithfield Fire Station, located on George Washington Highway. These services provide an enormous benefit to the town and to the taxpayers by helping to ease the cost burden associated with these projects. Recently, Stanley Tree Service helped more than 200 families in the Smithfield School District by paying off overdue and late school lunch, breakfast and lunch bills, totaling over $1,300. Whether sponsoring local sports teams or helping those in need, Stanley Tree has always stepped up to make a positive impact on this community, and we thank them for their support. If you guys can come on up, I'd love to present this to you. Have a down, council.
Thank you. Anybody want to come down? Yeah, why not? Oh boy. Thank you very much. Just on behalf of the men and women of Stanley Tree. No, you always do. If there's anything else you can do, thank you. Thank you, Randy. Moving on to minutes. A, move that the minutes of the May 16th, 2023 executive session meeting held pursuant to section 42-46-5A1 personnel to interview Daniel Green, Richard Lavelli, and Thomas Della Rosa for possible appointments or reappointments to a town board or commission, and to consider, discuss, and act upon the chief of police employment agreement be approved as recorded and sealed.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item B, move that the minutes of the May 16, 2023 open session meeting be approved as recorded.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Item 7, consider, discuss, and act upon the following possible appointments and reappointments. A, the Water Supply Board Advisory Commission appointment with a term expiring in December of 2024.
Mr. President, I move that the Smithfield Town Council appoint Daniel Green to the Water Supply Board Advisory Commission with a term expiring in December of 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, Traffic Safety Committee appointment with a term expiring in January of 2025.
Mr. President, I move that the Smithfield Town Council appoint Thomas Della Rosa to the Traffic Safety Commission with a term expiring in January of 2025.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good. Item C, Zoning Board reappointment with a term expiring in May of 2028.
Mr. President, I move that the Smithfield Town Council reappoint Richard Lavelle to the zoning board with a term expiring in May of 2028.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 8, public hearings. A, conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon amendments to Chapter 294 of the Code and Ordinance to amend Section 17 entitled Sewer Computation. I declare this public hearing open.
Hi, good evening, Council. Kevin Clary, Town Engineer. On behalf of the Sewer Authority, I present to you a public hearing request that was legally advertised in the local Observer online in accordance with the rules and requirements for public hearings. The advertisement ran for a couple of weeks. The matter of business is drafted ordinance amendments to sewer computations to address discrepancies with billing within our collection system for the users that are tied to the NBC sewer district and receive collection system services only from the town of Smithfield. Basically, to summarize the ordinance amendment changes, it summarizes basically a multiplier to those select sewer users in the district. There is about 11 of them right now. It adds a 0.35 multiplier to their annual sewer usage bill. And that was deemed to be a fair charge for the services that we render for those that ultimately receive treatment services from outside of our district.
They're getting a discounted price, right? That's why I read it.
No,
No?
presently they've been charged full usage annually. This multiplier of 0.35 would end up resulting in a discount.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you.
If there's any questions regarding the drafted language, Town Solicitor Anthony Colon had recommended a few minor revisions to the computation language in advance of this meeting. And those, the solicitor can explain any necessary changes that they may equal. There was only like 3 ands in addition to minor changes that were added to the language. But both prescribed formats have been provided to the council for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
This is a public hearing. If anyone wants to come up and speak, they can.
This is only for those 11 properties listed? Yes, sir.
All right, hearing none, I declare the public hearing closed.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President, the original ordinance language has been amended, but the amendment is not a substantive amendment, more of a stylistic amendment, so that it reads, sewer users connected to parts of the Smithfield sewer collection system that receive outside sewer treatment services provided by the Narragansett Bay Commission shall be charged an annual sewer use fee equal to 35% of the applicable sewer use rates, in addition to any applicable industrial pre-treatment program fees and any other municipal sewer use charges that may be imposed under the Smithfield Municipal Code of Ordinances. This ordinance amendment shall take effect 30 days after its adoption. So I would amend the motion to approve as amended with the amended language.
Okay. Do we have to get a second on that, or we already had a second? Yeah, first and second. Okay. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon amendments to Chapter 126 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Animals, Section 126-8, 126-10, 126-16, 126-20, 126-26, 126-45, and 126-53. And this is sponsored by Councilman John J. Gisoni Jr. I open this public hearing.
Good evening, council members. Bob Salisbury, Smithfield Animal Control Officer for the town. Thank you for reevaluating this, and I know a lot of the verbiage had to be changed due to different ordinances and some mistakes that have been made in the writing. The main concern that Animal Control has this evening is the limit of dogs and cats. We would like to see it limited back to 3 throughout the whole town, with the capacity of having more than 3 if there's over 3 because of land.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like that language is included in this. Yes.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Tabella. I represent Defenders of Animals. And I just wanted the town council to consider a few things. I'll make this as quickly as I can. Here's what can happen when you don't have limits on dogs and cats. You increase the possibility of pet hoarding, which means that pets don't get the proper medical care that they need. They're not likely to be spayed or neutered. They're not likely to have a rabies shot. And they certainly are not going to be licensed in the town of Smithfield if they don't have that rabies shot. Now, the Controlled Disease Center in Atlanta, Georgia, has stated that a male dog, unneutered male dog, is 2.5 times more likely to bite someone than any other dog. Guess who he bites? Children. There's a couple of categories. There's under the age of 2 years, and then there's 9 to 12 years old children. 99% are boys, and most of those children are bitten at home. These dogs are known. These are familiar dogs. These are not stray dogs that are biting. Now, in case you don't worry about pet hoarding, within the last 3 weeks, there was pet hoarding in Central Falls. They pulled 20 dogs out of one house, 20 cats out of the same house. In Coventry, this is all within the last 3 weeks. In Coventry, they pulled out 29 dogs, another pet hoarding situation. In Tiverton, they pulled 30 dogs out, again, in the last 3 weeks. Then you had that situation in Warwick with the 2 hybrid wolf dogs. That was connected to another situation with too many dogs, too many cats. In addition to pet hoarding to be concerned about, if you have a dog that bites somebody, obviously an animal control officer can tell you, now we're talking about quarantine. Now we're talking about putting a strain on the shelter. We got to worry about people operating pet stores out of private homes, because when those pets are not, those dogs in particular, are not spayed or neutered, you're going to end up with puppies sooner or later, and they sell the puppies. Then you got to worry about people wanting to force the dogs from out of state, because this state allows certain groups to bring in dogs from out of state. Our group always pushes for people to adopt from local shelters, local organizations, not from out of state. Then you're running the risk with pet hoarding, you're running the risk of neighborhood feuds. Now you got dogs barking next door to you. You got fecal matter in your yard that smell is going into somebody else's house. And I think what I'm asking is that you can prevent animal cruelty by putting those restrictions in, keep those numbers restricted. You're not only protecting animals, but you're also protecting the health and the public and the safety of children in particular. So just quickly, we've been around for over 40 years. We actually operated under contract with the city of East Providence to run that animal shelter back in the early 80s. I know what pet hoarding looks like when it happens. We had 12 runs. Animal control picked up 13 dogs in one day from a hoarding situation. We only had 12 runs. We were already packed up. So it can turn into a disaster. It really can. Then you got to worry about a cow being bit. then you gotta worry about all these dogs if they get loose and they get bit and they don't have their rabies shot up to date. Now you got a unknown biting situation. We don't know what bit him. Was it a coyote? Was it another animal that carries rabies? Then that dog has to be in quarantine anywhere from 10 days to 6 months. Now you're tying up the shelter. You can't even walk that dog. You can't touch the dog. So it's a bad situation all around, and Defenders of Animals is asking you to keep those restrictions in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't we already have an anti-hoarding provision in the ordinance we passed last time? Is there something in there already? So how does this help things if we already have it?
Well, if you only have 3 and you have 4, or you have 6, or you have 12,
Right?
that could be hoarding.
Why
We need to have the limit. The limit has always been in Smithfield. Unfortunately, it was taken out a couple of meetings ago. But as Dennis said, when you have more than 3 dogs or 3 cats to take care of, the cost is exorbitant in order for these pets to get the right medication, the shots that they need. And I don't want to put my head on a plate where a child gets bit and for some reason the owner with 7 or 8 dogs can't afford to have that dog vaccinated. That's on us.
Again, I just think it's government overreach. They're already protected. You know, the problem I have with government is that we treat every town, every state, every city, every country the same, and we're not. So.
Thank you.
Smithfield, 23 years, 4 cases. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone wants to get up and speak.
I'm Beth Cerrone. I just had an opinion on this. I personally do not think people need more than 3 dogs. I've been rescuing dogs for 30+ years, and at many years in a row, I've had 3 dogs. The expense is incredible. I don't have children, so I can afford my dogs. They don't always get along. So to me, I don't even know the reason why you'd want more than 3 dogs. I took 3 because I just kept taking more in because I was trying to help them. But I just, one of my dogs just within a matter of 4 months had blown out 2 legs. That was like $4,000. There are people that are not going to spend $4,000 if they have more than 3 dogs. And I personally, not Smithfield, was in a house in Lincoln. They were all medium-sized dogs. She had 6. And it was so sad because she'd put them out in the yard during the day in this small fenced-in yard. The poor neighbor next door the dogs barked all day. And there's always one alpha dog. And there was one dog that was so afraid of these other 5, she'd cower in the corner. And then when she brought them in at night, do you want 6 dogs running around? She had them all crated. I just personally don't see where you need more than 3 dogs. I'm the biggest dog lover in the world. I'd have 10, but I know I can't handle more than 3. So I'd appreciate that going back to 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with
Please
Rachel.
state your name and address.
Ed DeMel, 75 Whipple Road. I agree with Rachel on government overreach. However, if you look at the situation in Cranston, the little shepherd, only 2 years old, the old elderly gentleman, and he needed stitches, he got out of the yard. I think if you're gonna go that route of how many you have, well, then you have to look at the people's, I don't wanna be personal, but what are the finances of those people coming in to afford the medications and everything of these dogs, as many as they want? They need care, and veterinarians are not cheap. I think that neuter and spayed, I think Dennis would agree, when you get them out of a shelter, they have to be neutered and spayed. We don't need an overpopulation of dogs. I love dogs. If I could have 12 and afford them, I would love to have them. I can't afford one, but I only had one from Dennis, 15, it lasted 15 years, that was 40 years ago, beautiful little dog. However, I know I can't, my finances take care of a dog. I think that there should be, it sounds almost wrong to say government overreach. It is true, but in that respect, but I think Rachel's looking at a wide situation that's going around. I think there has to be a certain number, and I reiterate, like I said a month ago, the pits, I'm not, whoever owns these dogs, they should have to have some kind of extra insurance if they get out. When they clamp down, they hold. Can these people afford these dogs? And so forth and so on. Dogs are meant to be pets, not fighters. So I just think there should be a limit on animals. Not that I don't love them. I wish everybody could have 12, but you got to be realistic on taking care of these animals.
Thank you.
Council members, if I may add something, as what Councilmember Toppy said, we have had 4 hoarding incidents in the 23 years that I've been with Animal Control. But the reason we've only had 4 is because we've had numbers in line. 3 of those incidents were dogs. And even with numbers in line, we still had 3. The other one was for cats. If we had something in play for cats at that point in time, we would have probably been able to stop that also. Okay. As it pertains to over the 3 acres, Animal Control really doesn't want to see more than 3 animals anywhere in town. We are willing to work with the town council as far as having more than 3 cats or dogs over 3 acres of land or on agricultural properties. I know, speaking with Councilmember Toppy, she was saying that maybe if people had livestock and they wanted more than 3 dogs to protect their actual livestock. I've spoken to Sam Boulette, who is the daughter of Ann, who owns Blackbird Farms. Sam Boulette has 1 guardian livestock dog that patrols 15 acres of land for 65 animals. So by town zoning ordinances, for 3 acres of land, you can only have 2 pieces of livestock. 1 goat, 1 sheep, 1 horse, 1 cow, you can only have 2 combined, and you can only have 6 chickens. So why would anybody need more than 3 dogs to protect 8 pieces of 8 animals? You know, you're gonna run into pack mentality. We've dealt with this through Animal Control of dogs that we've adopted out that go to homes with all of their dogs. Once they become accustomed, they get loose. Those dogs act in a different manner once they're actually loose. If you want to look into home valuations, the home at 27 MacArthur Drive, I believe was sold for $60,000 to $70,000 less after it was condemned through the 82 cats that we had taken out back, I believe, in 2003. And then the Williams house at 189 Pleasant View Ave, that now stands, I believe, at $280,000 of what the bank is asking for it, and the house across the street, a similar build, is worth $470,000. So those 2 houses just in themselves are 600 yards apart, the MacArthur Drive house and the Williams house. So what did you do to the whole MacArthur Drive plat if you just lowered the housing valuation there? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Fredham Pike. I just had a question about the way that the ordinance was drafted in terms of the limit on the dogs being 3 and then the determination of 3 acres, what that was based on, whether there's any science that that's based on or evidence, or, you know, why not 2.5 acres or 4 acres, or why not 3 dogs that weigh 10 pounds or 2 dogs that weigh 25? You know, what's it based on? It just seems kind of arbitrary to me. Thanks.
It was based on Councilwoman Toppy asking for farms to have more than 3 animals.
But why 3 acres? Why not 4 acres? Or 2
No, if you're
acres or-
designated as a farm, you could have more than 3 dogs, as what Mr. Salisbury said.
I was using that as an example, but that was just a random number.
I'm
I
just
came up
wondering
with.
why 3 acres and why 3 dogs, and no consideration of weight or the size of the dog or, the nature of the property. Just wondering if it's based on anything. Thanks.
Anyone else in the public? We'll close the public hearing.
Move passage.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Item C, conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon amendments to Section 4.3, Table of Uses, Section 4.4M, Adult Recreational Use Cannabis, and Section 5.11, Solar Energy Systems of the zoning ordinances. I declare this public hearing open.
Good evening, Councilors. Mike Phillips, Town Planner. I believe you have the proposed amendments before you. I did summarize them. I can just run through the amendments briefly if you'd like. The solar ordinance, basically, we're looking at getting rid of the medium scale solar energy systems and limiting, prohibiting the large scale ones in the R80, R200 and open space zones, changing some of the provisions for how they're reviewed. And as far as the adult use cannabis, that's, state regulation came down on that, and we've adopted the stance that while we have to have the use in our tables, we are proposing that it be prohibited in all zoning districts. So that's a general overview of the amendments.
Where did the suggested change in large, small, and medium solar scales, where did the suggested change to remove medium altogether come from? That's a great idea, by the way. I'm not knocking that. That's
Well,
great.
in discussions with the planning board, it was, we reduced the size that would be considered a large scale down to 20. And at that point, it just didn't seem necessary to have a medium and large, since we're getting rid of it, prohibiting it everywhere, as far as residential zones go. So it didn't make sense to have the medium as well.
Okay, thank you.
So to be clear, right now, anything over 1,750 square feet is considered large.
Any ground mounted is considered large.
Right.
Above that number, yes.
Right.
Yep.
So what this proposed zoning ordinance amendment would do effectively is prohibit solar farm development in residential areas of Smithfield.
Correct.
Ground mounted.
Ground mounted, yes.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Front Pike. I just had a couple of questions. I think this is certainly an improvement to the solar ordinance. When this solar ordinance was first introduced, I had suggested to the council unsuccessfully that solar was more limited in residential districts, and I think this is a good step to be taking now, because I don't think that large-scale industrial solar belongs in residential zones. The way I'm reading the changes to the ordinance, everything will still go under technical review that previously was under technical review. Is that correct? So anything over 1750?
All new principal solar energy systems shall be subject to technical review.
Right, and then all accessory over 1750 will still be under technical review. Okay. On the section 511.7, section C. The existing ordinance now states that large-scale solar may be allowed on parcels of 15. That's brought down to 10. Just wondering what that 10 is based on, and whether, whether it could be a lower number, or whether there's sort of an analysis of what properties would qualify under that.
Mike, can you answer that?
Since we've limited large-scale solar projects to basically your industrial and commercial zones, so that it seemed more equitable to allow them on smaller parcels. There are not a lot of industrial or commercial properties, around 15 acres, so we thought it reasonable to allow them on smaller lots. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the only other comment I had was in regards to the situation that happened somewhat recently in terms of the trees that were taken down for the connection to the grid. The solar ordinance as it's written now gives the zoning board discretion to, and they would have the discretion of the comp plan as well, to make a determination of the impact of a particular proposed solar project on neighboring properties. There's also language in the current ordinance that connection would be, or underground connection would be encouraged. And I don't know the whole procedural history of the last one that took place, but and what was in that complete application, it's unclear to me that when the need to cut down all the trees, why didn't that go back to the zoning board if that wasn't previously given to them? I don't know when that issue came up, but I think it'd be an improvement to the ordinance if we dealt with that issue in the ordinance. And I'd recommend 2 additions. One is the following. Applicants must provide a thorough explanation of any transmission lines, access, or upgrade required as a result of the project, including but not limited to the route starting and endpoints, potential impact to street trees, and right-of-way width. And secondly, applicants must provide a thorough explanation of any new or proposed upgrades to electrical substations that are related to the proposed project. Information necessary is included but not limited to location, screening, setbacks, and noise impacts. I think all of that would be informative to the zoning board when they're looking at one of these projects, and I think it would prevent the situation we went through last year, where after a project was approved, there came this need to take down a large number of trees for the electrical connection. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we should change that tonight.
What I would suggest, Mr. Hodgkins, I would suggest that you send that to me, and we can propose, an addition to the ordinance at a later date, because I think that your comments are valid. That we need to look at. We actually need to look at the deforestation potential, even of non-residential solar farms in Smithfield, and I hope we can do that. And we have I was looking at a New England Forest Foundation study, which indicates that New England's forest could achieve a 30% reduction in carbon in the atmosphere if it's left undisturbed. And according to DEM, 69% of all forest loss in Rhode Island is from solar development. From 2018 to July 2021, Rhode Island lost over 1,000 acres of forest to ground-mounted solar development. So I think we need to look also at the non-residential areas to see if too much tree cutting would be allowed. We do have a provision regarding 40% of the property, not more than 40% of the property can be clear cut. I think that number might be a little too much. I think that we really need to make sure that we're not cutting down trees for solar farm development. And so I think we're going to be, this will be a continuing process with the planning department and the planning board to see what we can do going forward as well.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Public hearings, oh, okay.
Don Brown, 17 Russell Lane. I've been watching this project of the putting in a solar, and every time you go out, you go down even a remote road, and it's big areas being cut down for solar panels. And an example is you go up by the Douglas Pike area. I turned into one of those roadways one day and I was shocked that all the trees were going to, and it's got solar panels. And they're not the nicest things to be looking at. I'm not opposed to solar energy or any of the alternatives, but where is the benefit for the town in it? Most of that power is going into the net, the electrical net, for benefit for somebody that doesn't even live in Rhode Island, doesn't care to live in Rhode Island, and so on. If they could say that you get a solar panel somewhere in your area and the lights go out, that helps to bring them back on. That's not going to be the case. This is a for-profit operation. It's going to people that are living probably down in Pennsylvania or anywhere else that wants to invest in this. And to me, I think that's wrong. I've been in this town all my life, have done many things in the town, and I love being here. But when I see it going to ruination in many cases, because of the things that I remember and so on, in the woodlands especially, in this case, I think it's wrong that there's no direct effect. If they put a solar, like the farm, the one I tell you off Douglas Pike, was going to supply power to this town hall and the area around here to reduce their cost of it, I would say fine, but it doesn't cover it. It goes out to somewhere else. The same thing on all the other major roads. And I just think that it shouldn't be happening. There's a lot of things that's going on now that shouldn't be happening because of the long-term effects of the things. There's some things that may be on here that I want to speak about after that, but I am opposed to cutting all these trees down for somebody else's benefit out of the state, and it's only for their pocketbook. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Kenneth Souza, 2 Williams Road. So just 2 quick things. I'm kind of a simple person. I remember being at this podium with the whole Log Road situation and that famous quote that got into the Observer, when is Log Road not going to be called Log Road anymore? Is that parcel today, would that be prevented? Just a simple question, because obviously that was done prior to this ordinance may or may not be approved. It's in a residential area. It's right around the corner from my house, yeah. I'm just curious. I just want to get a context here.
You mean the project itself? The whole
Yeah, well,
project?
they cut down the, it was,
Yeah.
only 2 of you were here.
Yeah, well, that
the
was,
previous
that's a
council.
residential area.
Right, so would this new ordinance prevent that particular
Would
situation
prevent that project from being
if it was
built in the
today or
first place.
tomorrow?
Right.
Okay.
There'd be no project.
So that, because that was my point about it, we're losing trees, as the previous gentleman just said, and he's 100% correct, that electricity is being shipped out of this town at our loss for trees and things. That's really important. That's very, very important. I think the town planner said that there's going to be a reduction of the number of lots if this ordinance passes. Is there any sense of what we are today versus tomorrow? Because I think that's a really good question as to when you put this ordinance in, if it does pass into execution, what does it go from today and what will it be tomorrow in terms of the number of lots? Undeveloped, obviously. Does anybody, that would be a really great question to know the answer to, as to what's the effect of the ordinance if it was implemented.
Well, I think the effect of the ordinance would be that you'd have lots that are in residential areas that would not be developed for this purpose, so if someone wants to develop them, they'd have to develop them for residential use.
Right.
This is an industrial purpose, which really
Great.
should not have been put into a residential area.
I'm just curious as to how many go off the, sorry for the joke, off the grid if this ordinance passes. But if people don't know, if people don't know the number, but that would be, as a resident, it would be interesting to say, hey, 2,000, 5,000 lots are no longer going to be able to be developed in such a manner. I don't know. That's just a good statistic to have. Thank you.
Mike, I just have a quick question, Anthony. Anthony, when they did that solar up at the dump, Davis's dump, did they or did they not plant more trees than they took down to replace those trees?
I wasn't at the planning board level when all those requirements went in.
No, it was talked about at the council.
No, but I don't know. EPA required them to plant trees as a
Right.
result of environmental remediation. So I don't know if that had to, Mike can answer that question.
I don't think they put the solar panels on the Davis.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe that they did replanting and part of that. That was part of the remediation work, all that tree planting that you saw there. So we did have a discussion with them about their forest and what it was like. And their forest, believe it or not, was in real bad shape. And they were going to be losing, because of the gypsy moth blight up there in oak forest, a lot of their trees was dead standing. So it wasn't a high quality forest to begin with, but that's neither here nor there.
I think what the councilman's talking about might be when actually Grid was here. I think they said that with the trees that were being removed, they were going to replace in kind.
Offset.
Or
Yeah.
right, from the ones going down Log Road, what was supposed to happen. They were going to be younger trees, of course, because the other thing too is to not get into that
right
where the wire span was.
But that wasn't the 68 that they had already cut down for
Correct.
the project itself, was it?
No, that was specifically for when they came before us for the actual cutting along Log Road for the transmission lines.
I know when we did the Fidelity solar farm, they did a replanting plan on their property. They had a large pasture area that they were going to replant in trees. So that's one thing the planning board negotiated with them. One thing I just wanted to mention too, everyone's been saying that we're shipping all this, power off from solar projects, but a lot of the communities in the state are benefiting from net metering tax credits from these solar projects. We're going to be one of them soon. So it may not be a project in Smithfield, but it's going to be in surrounding towns. So. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. Joseph Wazalewski, 115 Mountaindale Road. I just wanted to, that sparked a little interest in me. Any benefits that the town could possibly obtain from, in terms of tax credits or whatever it is, will certainly be outweighed by the reduction in residential property values as a result of putting solar farms in residential areas. The residential zoning district is intended to be the most restrictive zoning designation, and allowing these principal solar residential systems, large-scale solar systems, to be put into residential zones erodes the very purpose of zoning. We would never consider, if somebody were to ask you, would you allow a power plant to be placed in a neighborhood, you would certainly say no. And that's exactly what these things are. These are power manufacturing facilities, instrumentality that manufactures power, and that's not the intent of a residential zone. There should be no principal solar energy systems in residential zones. We have to protect our residential values. There's a study I came across on the internet from the University of Rhode Island, indicating that within a certain proximity of large-scale solar, property values decrease by whatever it is, but it's a decrease in the property value. And I just wanted to touch on that whatever benefit a town could possibly get from allowing large-scale solar will be outweighed by the decrease in corresponding property values. We just want to protect our neighborhoods. We don't want to live amongst, these power generating facilities. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Grace Toppy, 20 Alpine Ridge. I agree with the gentleman before me and also Mr. Brown before me. I am against, excuse me, clearing land, destroying the homes of many animals, reducing the oxygen levels because you don't have the trees there anymore, to put solar panels in or anything else, really, or mostly anything else, especially if it is, again, not something that the town itself is reaping the benefits of. I also have a lot of concerns about the solar panels themselves. I want to know where they come from. My understanding is the vast majority of solar panels come from China, and I am against that. I don't feel that they are a friendly country. I don't think we should be depending on them for developing our alternate energy program and so on. I'm also very concerned about the lifespan. I don't know what the lifespan of the solar panels is. I also am very concerned, and tell me if I'm wrong, they use lithium batteries. Okay, lithium batteries are very dangerous. Lithium is an extremely flammable metal. So I think that they propose a danger. So I personally, it's not that I'm against solar energy. People want to put it on their houses, and I think that's fine, that's great. I also agree with the gentleman before me that I don't think the benefits outweigh the fact that property values are going to decrease. And we're all going to, Smithfield's not that huge. We're all going to, most of us are going to feel that. So that is what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Close the public hearing. Pleasure of the council.
If you're gonna table it, Mike, is that what you asked? Table it, so
No,
this
I move
gentleman-
passage.
I thought you wanted his language.
No, I want him to send me his language for a future proposed ordinance, because, I think this is an ongoing process, and we're gonna be looking at the solar ordinance continually, because we want to determine what effect non-residential development may have on some of our forested areas, because we don't want trees being cut down.
No. My apologies.
So I would move passage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, schedule a public hearing on June 20th, 2023 on the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget.
Move passage.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
E, conduct a public hearing to consider, discuss, and act upon approving the transfer of a B victual license from JNN Inc., DBA Rocco's Pub and Grub, located at 55 Douglas Pike, to Lee Deg Inc., DBA Rocco's Pub and Grub, same location, to include outdoor seating, bar service with hours of operation to be Monday through Sunday from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations, local ordinances, a copy of the retail sales permit, and final approval from the Rhode Island Department of Health. I declare the public hearing open.
Mr. President, I have a procedural question. Why do we have to do a public hearing on something like this? Why can't we just approve the transfer of this is private business being transferred from, this is commerce. We don't engage in this.
I think maybe for the neighbors have a
Well,
say.
it's also too of whether or not with the transfer, there's a liquor license. It's under the state law that requires a public hearing for it to move it from one entity to the other.
So the law basically states that it's okay to have a liquor license here, but if you move it next door, you could ask the public.
It's not so much that, it's also the transfer of ownership. It's going to another entity. So,
Why does the
so
public
if-
have to have an input on transfer of ownership from one private person to another?
The state law requires it.
Okay, just curious. It's good enough for me then.
Anyone from the public would like to speak on this? Okay.
You want to compel us about your new establishment?
I'm the one that's here transferring it to, so I'm just here to seek approval.
How's it going?
Good.
See, I don't know why we have to.
No, I mean, we can highlight her. Anything special at the new establishment?
No.
Okay.
Everything's in order?
You look healthy. Glad to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Submitted, Carol? I mean, Lynn?
Wow.
You can certainly approve it, and like, don't have to ask.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Actually, I got to close the public hearing. Pleasure of the council. Sorry.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're on to licenses. Consider, discuss, and act upon approving a new victualling license for Lee Dag Inc., DBA Rocco's Pub and Grub, located at 55 Douglas Pike, as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations, local ordinances, the signatures of the Smithfield Fire Chief, owner of premise, a copy of the retail sales permit, and final approval from the Rhode Island Department of Health.
We did recently just get the approval from the fire chief, and I have the signature of the owner of premise as well.
Excellent.
Move passage.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item B, consider, discuss, and act upon approving 7 one-day special event licenses for the Smithfield Appleby House for the Summer Concert Series, 220 Stillwater Road. These events will be hosted by the Smithfield Parks and Recreation Department on the listed dates. All special event licenses for the Smith Appleby House are subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
Move passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item C, consider, discuss, and act upon the annual renewal of 2 peddlers licenses as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances. This is for Wolf Novelties and New England Frozen Lemonade.
Move passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item D, consider, discuss, and act upon approving a new holiday sales license for Apple Land Orchard RI LLC, DBA Apple Land Orchard RI LLC, located at 135 Smith Avenue, as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations, local ordinances, and a copy of the retail sales permit.
Move passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Under old business, consider, discuss, and act upon a bid award for the school department snow removal service.
Good evening, members of the council. Angela Mancucci, Smithfield Public School Department. Here to answer any questions pertaining to the RFP surrounding snow removal for the school department.
I think one of the questions that came up was just to get a rough idea of, with having a good winter that we had, hopefully a good summer, what savings was generated from in the line item for snow removal?
That would be a budgetary item. I wouldn't have that exact number with me. I came just to answer. I thought there was just questions about the RFP and the contents of it. But in general, say we had a mild winter, and for the winters that weren't so mild, like in 15 and 18, if we have any savings, it would go back into the general fund.
Okay, and could you also explain the process right now about, so if snow happens, becomes your determination whether or not that they'd be called into service?
Correct. And we keep that in the RFP in the event, and hopefully someday the town will be plowing the schools together with the school department. That is in the RFP, that we reserve the right to call in the vendor upon notice. And just one statement, if I could, through the chair. The current vendor that has been selected for the 3-year term has been plowing snow and is a town business. We've been doing it for 7 years for the school department.
Mike, I have a question, if I may. You said the money goes back to the budget. Whose budget? Does it come back here or does it stay over there?
It would stay within the school department budget, sir.
Okay. Do you happen to know what they budgeted last year, amount of money?
With the request for information, I could get you that information. I was not prepared for that this evening. I apologize.
The reason exactly why you guys can't do it now is what? The plow, I'm sorry.
We do plow. This is a
Versus out
subcontract,
outside.
is that the town, we've had many conversations with Mr. Allen. So the balance is, do you want the roads done or the schools done? As we stand right now. So with having a subcontractor on board, this ensures that school will open on time and that we also assist with the plowing with the subcontractor, with the school department.
So there's not enough employees and equipment? Is that what I'm understanding? To
I'm
get it
saying,
all done?
as far as on the school side, no, we only have 3 plow trucks.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I want to add going off of Councilwoman Toppy's comment is, Andrew, you said ensuring that school start time, one thing that's changed a lot since COVID and even yet last year with this, with no snowfall, is this learning from home initiative that the school department's been doing. If it's too unsafe to bus the students to the schools, if the roads themselves aren't safe enough to be passed, the students will just stay home. Is there anything that contributes to this increase, to an increased cost if we ask who is P&K Landscaping, like you have to come in and do this before 7 o'clock or something like that? If we didn't have to do that because students are staying home, is what I'm saying. Is that a cost save right there?
No, well, let me answer it accurately. So normally during a snow event, you time the snowstorm as it's coming. So you're always plowing the snow in the event that you want to have school the next day. In the event that come around 4 o'clock in the morning that you are not ahead of the storm, a determination will be made at that time whether to have a 2-hour delay. That buys us 1 hour because buses have to be on the road for 5:30 a.m. Buses have to be warm by 4:30 a.m. So by 5 o'clock is the final call, whether it is a 2-hour delay or no school, depending upon the intensity of the storm.
Thank you.
It's the pleasure of the council.
Full passage.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, consider discuss and act upon adopting a resolution on a town flag policy on town-owned property sponsored by Councilman John J. Jassoni Jr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think there was a few questions last time, and we had the attorney redraft it. I don't know if anybody has any questions on it.
I don't have any questions on the item itself, more so just a comment in terms of I understand the rationale as to why the proposal is the way that it is. I think that it allows us to sidestep addressing a number of different issues. I don't think this is necessarily the right move. I still am advocating that we, take a policy that mirrors Newport. This is where we're at. And, I would urge my colleagues to not support this policy.
Thank you.
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Fernham Pike. I think at the last meeting, I may have inadvertently kicked up some dust by asking some questions about the ordinance. But I think that my concern was the inclusion of the term commercial flags without a definition, and then the policy was silent on who would make a determination of what a commercial flag is. I think that since that's been removed, it's a great improvement, and recommend you approve it.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Full passage.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, under new business, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing a short-term renewal agreement for Sewer Authority wastewater facilities 2013 operation and maintenance contract with Veolia Water. Veolia Water.
Thank you, members of the council. Kevin Clary, once again, town engineer. This matter before you tonight is more of a housekeeping and clerical administrative matter to engage a short-term renewal agreement for the 2013 wastewater operations and maintenance contract while the pending proposal review, service agreement, development, and final negotiations occur with the proposer that did submit proposals for the 2023 services and beyond. So while we work out the negotiations and proposal development to the town council for consideration of a future contract award, this is more of a clerical matter to keep the current contract in place for the short-term period till through the end of July, so that we can continue working under the existing terms and conditions of the contract while we get the new contract in place. Things did get a little bit behind schedule with the development of this RFP and its advertisement and the bid proposals received, and then obviously the review of them and development of the large service agreement that goes along with it. So Veolia presented this matter to me just to memorialize and capture the extension of the contract, if you will, for a short period of time longer.
Kevin, do you think you'll be done by 7:31?
Yes, we're wrapping up the service agreement right now. That's a pretty lengthy document. That's really the heart of the essence of our O&M contract with this wastewater provider. And if we can come to final terms on that within the next week or so, and then meet with them and hopefully hash out the agreement, I think we'll be developing a recommendation during the month of July for the sewer authority and get back in front of the council in August with
Thank you.
contract award. Thank you, council.
Any other questions? Or
Move passage.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Item B, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing amendment number 1 to the Sewer Authority Consulting Engineering Master Service Agreement with Camp Dresser McKee Smith.
Again, thank you, council, for this, considering this matter. Looking into CDM's service agreement with the Sewer Authority in December, recognized that their current service agreement, that what's called a Master Service Agreement, MSA, had expired in October, and forwarded a request to the consultant to provide an amendment. Their service agreement allows for 3 one-year amendments at the approval of the town council. So as a matter, again, as housekeeping, I wanted to expedite that as quickly as I could. I know it's June now, but I did request a service agreement amendment from them in the month of February, and finally received it in April, and put the matter before the sewer authority to memorialize a recommendation to the town council, and as such, it comes in front of you tonight.
Thank you.
No, sorry, Council Tassoni, no changes to the service agreement are proposed, no increases in fees or charges, so that's important also to note.
Thank you.
Sorry, John.
Move passage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you,
Motion
council.
carries. Item D, I'm sorry, item C. Consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing a bid award for construction services for the Boyle Athletic Complex at Smithfield High School.
Thank you, Council President. I do have we have our experts here as well, but I will try to do it some justice for a quick Cliff Note version of what's before us tonight. The RFP went out for the Boyle Complex, including multiple alternates for the different aspects of the project. 4 vendors submitted the proposals, and the leading vendor with the lowest qualified proposal came in from Green Acres Landscape and Construction. After reviewing the different pricing and within the budget that is available through town and school funding, we're recommending from the Boyle Athletic Committee the approval of the base bid with alternate 2 and alternate 3. And both of those alternates, the first one, alternate 2, will increase the quality of the turf that is being installed, as well as the warranty to becoming a 10-year warranty, as well as making it 100% recyclable. Secondly, alternative 3 is for the scoreboard installation, wiring, and so forth. The other aspects of alternates are more of a construction, meaning the concession stand entry and the stands. So we're recommending that the bid be redrafted for that work, and we'll be getting back to the town council and the school committee shortly, so we can go out and get more aggressive pricing on those aspects of the project, breaking out the parts at a field and turf and so forth versus an actual construction project. So I think we will see that come more in line with our estimates.
Manny, has there been any discussions on putting out a bid on someone who may want to sponsor the scoreboard? Like an organization, Home Depot, Lowe's, Stanley Tree?
Correct. That is a great idea, Councilman, and that's come up at our Boyle meetings. It's something that's under review with the school department because it being a school property, it's a decision based on the policy of the school department. So we've been told that they're reviewing it. So it was brought to us at the last meeting.
Maybe we could sell partially the naming rights to the field as well. We can get some money for that.
There is definitely a lot of options to help offset the costs and allow us to get the extra bells and whistles for what our kids and our community deserve.
Did we get input from the high school sports teams? I have been reading so many conflicting things through Facebook and everything online from people in town. Do they want turf? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
They definitely do, and we've had all the experts, from the sports involved, including the track and field. So for the field aspect of throwing events and things like that, the turf, with our soccer, football teams, lacrosse teams, all providing feedback, the athletic director being on there. So everybody's been heavily involved, and it's definitely recommended based on the turf quality and the thickness of the padding. It would be the safest for our children.
So if it's the appropriate time, I'd like to move passage.
Second.
I'd like to ask, I still have a question I want to ask, and I think Tom has something to add too.
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Frenham Pike. Will any change orders that increase the contract price of the project come to the council for approval?
Yes, sir. It will go to the Boyle committee and then to the town council.
So we're already north of $4 million on this without the stands and the press box. How much more do you anticipate that this is going to cost? I know you want to rebid some of that.
Correct.
And this bid was $2 million. So
Correct, and it shows that it's not their trade, being that they're a field turf landscape group that are going to outsource, so they're going to have the markup, on their end, as well as the potential person that would build it for them. So the estimates would be $1 million or less for everything else. That's based on our best estimates at the time, and we're fine tuning to have alternates to that proposal so that we can look at maybe we don't need the huge Shangri-La press box to give us the options when we actually price it. So there'll be an itemized listing on the price sheet.
Would you also explain how the funding works on this?
Sure. So for this part of the project, there's funding that was made $2 million from the school department, and I forgot the exact dollar value from the town between our capital funds as well as the opera funds to fund this part of the project. And there's other pieces of the actual total Boyle complex, meaning the HVAC and rooftops, which involve other funding, meaning the ESSER funding and the infrastructure bank funding for that project, which the incentives would go back to pay down the amount that we would be using.
So there's no bonding involved in this at all?
Not on this. There is the bonding that's involved with the HVAC for the energy efficiency, but nothing to do with the field. It's all cash-based.
Ken Souza, 2 Williams Road. I wasn't sure whether it was public comment. My question is in relation to the $2 million, and I think the manager knows what I'm talking about, and the other hat for 48 hours from now. How much of this, is the bid for 2 million, 1 million, $1? I'm just curious what, I know you said there were some that you're carving off for a future rebid.
Correct. So it's $4,234,252 for the main bid. Hopefully we tallied it here. And then alternate 1 was $37,965, and alternate 2 was $85,785.
Okay, so my question is, again, this is for the other hat that we'll be doing in 48 hours. How much of that will be expended by June 30th that we will have to cut a check for? And I think you understand why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, it's minimal. So,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so the $2
Because
million
by the time we
fund
get the contracts
transfer,
done before June 30th, so the $2 million would not be spent.
it's going to end up going back to the fund balance, whatever the unexpended balance is. Okay, so
Correct.
it's nowhere near the $2 million.
No,
Okay,
not between now and then.
now and then. Thank you.
Need a motion, Mr. President?
I think the motions are pending. So,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing a bid award for the school department's replacement rooftop HVAC units.
So that this proposal before the council was also approved by the Boyle Athletic Committee at our last meeting, the school committee last night, recommending going forward with Coin Mechanical Incorporated with the base bid of $259,000 plus the alternate bid of $101,200. And this work is to actually install the rooftop units that the council awarded a few months back that will be installed at the high school to bring fresh air intake into the schools. I'm definitely not the expert on this area, but we definitely have some if there's any questions specifically about the functionality of what the rooftop units do.
When's the installation, if it's approved, when are they planning?
They're planning on getting it as soon as possible, so to try to make sure everything is completed prior to the kids coming back.
Thank you, sir.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion from the council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing a contract with AA of Asbestos Abatement Company of Johnson, Rhode Island through the Rhode Island Master Price Agreement number 196 in the amount of $35,930.00 for asbestos abatement at the East Smithfield Neighborhood Center.
Thank you, Council President. So this item, as we're continuing the project at the East Smithfield Neighborhood Center, as we know with the age of the building, there's definitely aspects that pertain to asbestos and other types of things and within the area in the crawl space below the building where a lot of the piping and HVAC ducts will need to go, needs to be abated prior to allowing them to do the work down there. So this funding is included in all the project funding that has to do with the center. And it's just something that we need the council to approve so we can keep that aspect of it going.
Move passage.
Seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing a bid award for the school department's Innovation Learning Lab STEAM equipment.
Scott, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about it, so I hand this off to you.
Scott Barnett, Smithfield Public Schools. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to the committee about this. In February, we were informed of a $171,000 grant to the school system for the 21st Century Innovation Centers. It was furniture, computers, and tools to improve the STEAM, that's science, technology, engineering, math, or science, technology, engineering, arts, and math programs. At that time, we embarked upon a full-scale request for quote that came to that amount. Subsequent to that, budgeting issues reduced the amount that we were able to spend on the grant, meaning there were items shifted against the grant that were allowable by the administration. And that left me with us with about $38,000 to spend. So we took in the full RFQs, reviewed them and scored them and recommended that the Boom Company in the amount of $29,207.44 for the computer STEM STEAM equipment at Gallagher Middle School and our 3 elementary schools be paid from grant funds. These come from the grant funds. They're not coming from any budgeted amounts under the state of Rhode Island for the 21st Century Innovation Fund. We met and reduced, these will help us with ArcGIS mapping, robotics, STEM, STEAM at these locations. And we were able, initially it was a proposal for in the area of 24 computers with flight simulation and other tools that would be of interest to the students as well, but it was reduced down to 5 computers with dual monitors. We'll have green screens and other robotic products like Ozabots that were purchased through other funds that will make these nice, very inviting places for the students to enjoy these learning experiences at the elementary and middle school.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our information indicates it's through the School Building Authority Capital Fund. It doesn't say that it's from a grant.
I have no information about a school building capital fund. The original 171,000 was on a printout that I believe should have been included in your packet. That was a 21st Century Innovation Fund that we were informed about in February. And then Assistant Superintendent Monaco contacted the state to qualify the various items that we're going to do through this. So then they moved Chromebooks into the space, and that saved money against the regular budget. And that's what's left us with the 38,000.
I just saw, Councilman, what it was. I see it's the same term. So School Building Authority Capital Fund is a technical term for funds within your budget, but it's also what they call it at RIDE for your grant funding.
And being in the operational side and not only advising on budget, I really didn't have that information, but thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, consider, discuss, and act upon authorizing change orders number 1-6 to J.G. Edwards Construction for Phase 1A and Phase 1B renovation work at the East Smithfield Neighborhood Center in the amount not to exceed $40,908.90.
Thank you, Council President. As we talked about the asbestos abatement, there's been other work that's been necessary as we start to open different aspects of the building up, and you know, everything is moving along very well. With the project, as we can actually see now, we're starting to see the top coming off the roof and the new shingles being put on. So these items will catch us up to speed to think of the different aspects of the work that need to continue. And approve some that was approved by, signed off by the architect pending the council's approval, just so it was in the field at the immediate time. And the rest of the items will be going forward, and will catch us all up to base and continue the project for hopefully a opening soon for at least the first end of the building with the human services and the recreation department and everything. So we're getting very exciting stuff going.
Do you have a clerk of the works over there?
Our architect oversees that directly, as well as Gene Allen and
So
Bobby
the
Keane. So there's not a person on site at all times.
So the architect signs off on the exchanges as 41,000 change?
He reviewed it all, and yes, he recommends that the town council approve it.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Item H, consider, discuss, and act upon a request from the Northern Rhode Island Collaborative to terminate their lease on July 15, 2023, prior to completion of the current term expiring on August 14, 2023.
Thank you, Council President. So the Northern Rhode Island Collaborative has made it very clear that they will be vacating the premises at William Windsor School since they actually passed the deadline for renewal, which we assumed that was going to occur based on the dissolving of the entity. On May 22nd, the Collaborative sent a letter officially notifying the town of the impending dissolution of the organization, and we're asking the town to waive the last month of the lease, which is set to expire on August 14th. Just a couple pieces of information that the lease, as we negotiated it, was built on the town putting certain capital needs into that facility and planning on the offset of that revenue to make it a win-win situation, but for both the collaborative as well as the town. So I would suggest at this time that the town council allow to deny the removal of that additional month and let the expiration fall on August 14th, and to make sure that the town is made whole for the lease agreement that we entered into.
What's the amount that we would lose if we didn't?
It's $18,673.45.
Is there an inspection when they leave?
Yes.
Mr. President, I move that the town council deny the request of Northern Rhode Island Collaborative to terminate their lease on July 15, 2023, prior to the completion of the current term expiring on August 14, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item I, consider, discuss, and act upon approving tax abatements in the amount of $281.97. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. On to public comment. If anyone would like to come up and speak, you're more than welcome. State your name and your address, please.
Joe Toppy, 20 Alpine Ridge. I want to preface my remarks by saying that my public comments are just that, my public comments, not those of my councilwoman daughter, my wife, or my dog. One dog, by the way. People elected to office in this country are elected to evaluate any legislation, proposals, or discussion. Researching these is needed, and then they vote as they see fit. Not everyone agrees with all their decisions. A vote is taken and the majority rules. This is how democracy works. P.S. If you want to be the one who votes, run for office. In dictatorships, the dictator tells the councils how they are to vote. The votes are cast his way or else. As you would expect, all votes end unanimously in his favor. I sat here last month for the Smithfield Gay Pride and Perpetuity vote, and the vote passed 3-1. So be it. But wait, did I say 3-1? Yes, one council member voted nay, and the next day the firestorm began. I've seen the same reaction regarding recent school committee opinions. It's nothing short of straight out bullying. My comments are not aimed at this town council. My remarks are meant to address the frauds and the hypocrites in this town that oppose bullying, but are bullies nonetheless. They've been all over social media doing just that, bullying anyone who doesn't vote their way. It's a do as I say and not as I do situation. It's no longer a victory if the vote passes in their favor. The new marching orders are to use social media, text, and emails to threaten, smear, or coerce these school committee or town council members who did not allow a unanimous victory for legislation that they support. You see, winning is no longer good enough. They feel the need to educate the legislators to see things their way or else. I'm sure these same people remark on how they can't get anyone to run for office come election time, but who wants to subject themselves to these angry mobs with a my way or the highway mentality? Let's talk about the new buzzwords: inclusion, equity, and diversity. I agree, everyone should have a right to be heard, but not heard only if you agree with us or the hatred that we profess to be so against will begin. No good comes from these actions. Our town is better than this. If these people spend their time on positive words and actions, they could be an example to others who don't know how to handle themselves in a civil manner. In the end, we could all be better off. Got a lot of energy? Join a committee and try to improve our town instead of spreading divisive words and plans. So is it better that you try to contribute to the common good rather than be a shameful snake in the grass hypocrite? I'll let you decide. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to speak?
thing I want to speak to right now was attached to what I spoke on before, but when I went back to the schedule here, I saw use of cannabis, and I didn't hear that discussed at all. Can you tell me what it,
This is public comment, I'm sorry.
please?
This is public comment. Correct. So.
No, I just want you to explain it. I didn't. ask you to
Basically, the
take any action on it.
cannabis portion was to put into an ordinance form what the voters passed last fall in the election, namely to prevent the sale of marijuana in the town of Smithfield.
Retail sale.
The retail sale, right.
So retail sale of cannabis products is prohibited in every zone.
All right, I'm glad that that's the case. That's what I was going to speak on. These things keep coming up, and I've watched politics, been involved in them before. When things come up, they keep coming up every year because the same people put them through. Next, you know, you've got it as a base. Fine example was gambling in the state. It got voted down on the ballots at least twice in a row. But yet it went through because the same people, when I was at the legislature, was pushing it, and they wanted it, and they ended up getting it. And I think that's wrong. Last night, I was watching John's program, and it was on drinking, right? And I was sorry that it didn't get carried over to have something to do with the allowing cannabis or any other drug. We have a trouble with driving and accidents and so on currently. And all I can see is when they start putting this stuff out with, and the public has access to it, it's just gonna exacerbate that and make it even worse. And I don't know why anybody, and I'm glad this town is taking that action to not do it, and I hope it keeps it that way. I feel very serious about that. I've been a long time in this town, a long time in participation in things that saw some of the bad things that happened. I was 54 years on the fire department, active as a volunteer, so thank you.
Thank you.
You know, as a procedural matter, I'd like to see in the future with these zoning amendments that maybe we should separate them out and vote on them separately. I suppose we could advertise them together if it saves money, but we really should be solar and cannabis pretty far apart. So to have a public hearing on that all at once, to me, is very confusing to the public.
Hello.
Good evening, Council President. Paul Santucci, 10 Appletown Road. At the last meeting, a seed was planted by Councilman Tassoni about wanting to sell Smithfield water. Now, that should not be considered in any way, shape, or form. We have 3 water systems in town: Greenville Water, Providence Water, and Smithfield Water. We have an excellent water system, and we deliver water for less cost than Providence Water. We have excellent human resources in Gene Allen and Bob Forrest, just to name a few. The Smithfield Water Advisory Board, or the Advisory Commission, began because the council or the board was not doing enough. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were lost by not passing along wholesale water rate increases years ago. And we also gave away $85,000 in hookups to a condo association when we had 2 previous water superintendents at the Department of Public Works. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were gone, transferred to the general fund from an enterprise fund years ago. When we started the Advisory Commission, there was no accounting. There was only one line item. We can control our own destiny with our own water system. We have a lot of flexibility in our system, and it's a very, very valuable asset. We have areas that are zoned for commercial use, and so we can expand our system. We can also provide more redundancy to make sure that the water main, in the event of a water main break, we've actually gone through 2 tanks and rehabbed them with aerators, mixers, and they're in excellent condition. The pump stations are immaculate. You could eat off the floor in them. I would actually, as a member of the advisory commission, entertain a meeting with the board so we can actually share what our advisory capacity is. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Farnham Pike. I wanted to address the zoning ordinance amendment that the council made back in April. Prior to that meeting, I wrote a letter to the council addressing a number of issues. One was the town's decision not to provide written notice to owners of, or abutters of properties that were rezoned under those zoning amendments. Our zoning ordinance requires that written notice is provided to abutters when there's a change to a zoning map or a specific change. It's my understanding that the town, in making that decision, relied upon a case involving North Providence, where North Providence had completely overhauled its zoning ordinance and rezoned over 50% of the properties in town. I think that analysis misses the mark as to what was done at the April 4th meeting. What was done was there was a new zone created, and there were about 60 properties that were rezoned. It didn't apply to all, most, or a majority of the properties in town. It didn't even apply to all, most, or any particular districts in town. The change was only to certain properties. So based on that analysis, it raises the question then, where in the range of 1 to 60 does the change become from specific to general? Because there must have been a decision made that if one property change was specific and required written notice, and 60 doesn't require written notice, where on that range does it become specific? Does it become general and not specific? Any decision as to whatever that number was, whether it was half, 25%, 2/3, whatever that was completely arbitrary and not supported by anything in our ordinance. I'd also ask you to consider to what end that decision was made. So the town doesn't provide written notice. It doesn't want to spend 50 or 60 cents on a letter to abutters. Maybe the town finds itself in court. Now it's incurring the costs of legal fees. It's taking the position in court that providing notice to its residents isn't a good thing, isn't required, they shouldn't be entitled to it, all because they didn't want to send a letter, and for a case which you may or may not win in court. The bigger issue, I think, though, is the town taking a narrow view of the rights provided to residents under the ordinance, individual rights, property rights, taking a narrow view of that. And I think when governments, when towns, whatever the body is, takes a narrow view of rights like that, and nobody says anything, it encourages the town and the government to continue doing that and to continue to narrow its view on what rights its residents have. So I hope that the council will reassess its position on what rights residents have under the ordinance, and specifically with regards to notice. I'd suggest that you look at that under 2 perspectives, one being the legal perspective, but also the policy perspective. And is a policy that encourages property rights, encourages notice to residents, and encourages engagement something that this town and the council wants to aspire to. Thank you.
Any more public comment? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?